question for Professor Heath. I'm having a little trouble understanding legends, I must confess. If I understand it, legends is about equity. It's about justice. And on the other, somehow the court is handing this concept over to New York State and saying that artists, with this decision, somehow we're achieving justice. And it doesn't seem just at all.
It was made up. They didn't follow their own rules. If you want to call my office tomorrow, I can give you 6 law review commentaries that severely criticize it. It doesn't follow any of the rules, and of course it's not fair. The idea is it's not fair to New York to wait that long. Now, part of that may have been the way those other cases were framed. And that was to go after individual land. But let's remember that the first time it comes up at Sherrill. The Onondagas didn't take the land from anybody. They bought it on a fair market. They bought it when it was available. In fact, over the last 20, 25 years, there's been a lot of talk of the way to reacquire Haudenosaunee land would be to buy it from willing sellers within a certain area. Non-disruptive. Now, you've got to do that with some planning and some agreement. If we could get some real leadership out of the state government that would face the fact that the Haudenosaunee are entitled to land there. I mean, for goodness sake, the Cayugas need land. They don't have any land. So, no, that's what took me a few months of rereading this and finding where is is this legally defensible, this decision? And it's not. But then what the Second Circuit did was even worse. And so, no, it's not justice, and yet it is a fairness principle. And it's used improperly. There's no other way to describe it.
I'm trying to get my head around the use of the doctrine of discovery by the liberals on the court. I mean, it's my understanding that Ruth Ginsburg has made reference, right, to discovery. So I'm trying to get a sense of how do they see this in their own head? Why they would make reference to something like the doctrine of discovery as a justifiable argument for anything. Do they see it just as sort of realpolitik, you know, or that they have to make reference to existing statute or something like that, or do they see it as justifiable? And if so, how do they see it in their own head?
I can tell you this, the swing vote in Cayuga, it's a 3-2 decision. The second vote against the Cayugas is our own liberal judge from this area. And when we look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's history of writing opinions on Native Americans, it's horrible. It's horrible. She's written some of the worst opinions in the last 20 years, cutting away at Native American sovereignty. I don't know what that teaches us about liberals, but it doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
You said each and every one of us can make a difference, and can you please tell us how?
We have to, first of all, you've come out tonight, you've listened to this. I think we need to read more, and I think we need to start taking the opportunity, every opportunity we have, to hold our governmental officials responsible. Now, it's hard to hold judges responsible. It's very hard to hold federal judges responsible since they're appointed for life. But it seems to me that if we're really going to have justice here, we're going to need to come to something that's somewhat similar to the Seneca-Salamanca Settlement Act, which is that Congress needs to step forward and bring a settlement that's fair. Now, you know, that's pretty hard to imagine given our current Congress, I understand. We have a Congress that won't do anything. And so every election, I think, is critical from now on. Whether or not if we had a Democratic Congress, we could end this war, I think we could. If we had a Democratic Congress, could we start having hearings into the dismantling of the Bill of Rights? I think we could. We have some state leaders, some local elected state leaders, and Assemblywoman Christensen being the one I'm thinking of the most, is very supportive and works very well with the ordinance. Doesn't cost her job. We need politicians who have the courage to stand up and lead us. I can tell you that in the 20-some years that I've worked with the Onondagas, we haven't had one state leader that's willing to try to find a fair solution to these problems. I had Pataki's lawyer tell me back in 97, 98, when there was a settlement on the table of the Cayuga land claim, a settlement that the federal government would have paid half for. It would have ended it. It would have resolved it. It would have given the Cayuga people some land. It wasn't perfect. Any settlement is very difficult. You have to give up something in order to get a settlement. But it would have been a lot better than being kicked out of court. His lawyer told me, we don't care if the court orders them, and that settlement was for $165 million, half of which would have been paid by the federal government. So for less than $100 million, the state could have got out of it. We don't care, she said. We don't care if the court gives them $500,000. It won't be our fault. We can't have politicians like that leading. That's how we change. And we begin to talk about the doctrine of discovery. We begin to make people think about changing it, about renouncing it. We're going to begin to try to bring more concrete steps as to how to do that. But it's all about taking the power back that has been stolen from us by this current administration and holding we're supposed to be in a democracy. These officials in Albany need to honor their half of the treaty. We were talking about this in the mid-70s when I came back to Syracuse from having worked on Attica. Honor the treaties. We talked about that during Vinyonga. We talked about that during Arkansas. We got to keep talking about it. We got to raise the volume. I don't have too many more specific than that, but that's the kind of thing. We have to start a political movement that changes what's going on.
I hope you don't rule this question out of order. It might sound a little weird, but I was really struck by one of the early treaties that you described that forecast as the outcome that the land around Onondaga Lake and the salt would be shared and held in common. I thought that was a very interesting vision. And I found myself comparing that to what's going on there today with, let's say, Lockheed Martin and Carousel Mall. I just wondered, without trying to write a bad novel about this, let's take out the word destiny entirely, because that's just prejudging the entire thing. But what do you think of the modern day land speculators, the modern day politicians who are falling all over themselves to provide an easy way for land speculators to profit from this lake and the land around it? And what do you think of the Syracuse Common Council and the way that they've been trying to call for justice? I'd just like to get a comment on that.
I think the council's doing the right thing from what I can see. I think if Congress wants to build something, he should pay for it. And he shouldn't steal taxes from our city schools that need them so desperate.
Clean up his rusty girders too. Everything up the land.
But the part that I know more about is how the state of New York is trying to let Honeywell off the hook. Honeywell, as most of us know, owns the responsibility for the devastation of the South Bay shoreline for 6 or 7 or 8 of the Superfund sites along the lake. for the lake bottom itself. If we had that shared vision where the Onondaga is cultural, respectful of the natural world leadership was involved, then we could have a clean lake. It's a huge job. The more we study it, the more phenomenal it is to me. But it can be done. Honeywell can afford it. Honeywell's getting really rich off this war. 96% of Honeywell's profits come from the war industry. They can afford it. And yet we have the state and most of the federal politicians willing to let them walk away for 5 cents on the dollar rather than cleaning that lake up. If there's a future for Syracuse and Central New York, I think it would be a lot better if we had a clean lake, a really clean lake, where you could swim, eat the fish. We could walk down on lunch from downtown, ride a bike down there, kayak, windsurf in the lake. Now, most of the people in power don't need that because they live on Skinny Island Lake. But if we have that kind of vision, and the same thing is true for Onondaga Creek. Onondaga Creek is the lifeblood of this county. It's a trout stream up in Tully. And then it's ruined. And it's ruined by another branch of Allied solvate process from their salt mining and the resulting mud boils. And the county wanting to dump sewage in it. This is not leadership. We all know that. The more we look at it. This week we were at the county legislature that rubber stamped a $50 million overrun on the Midland plant. Actually, it's much more than that. Same plant that's racist. It's environmental injustice. It wouldn't be built in a white neighborhood, but it's being built in the Midland neighborhood where they have cleaned the community out. It's not fair. And it's the same kind of lack of morality and leadership. And we just have to keep saying that it's wrong.
It seems like whether or not the relationship is supposed to be involved in the United States government, and it obviously is, like that's going to be beside the point, but right now the Pope is trying to avoid so much of being called a racist because of his involvement in the Nazi regime in Germany. And it seems like he's doing a lot of work to try to stop people from calling them racist, so it might be an interesting time to try to bring the doctrine of discovery up in order to take it out of existence. I was wondering if there's anything going on with that or what could be done if you know anything.
There's been a letter written to the Pope within the last year, I think, to ask the Vatican to rescind the papal bulls that are part of the basis of the doctrine of discovery. There was a debate about the doctrine of discovery in May at the UN in New York. There was a representative of the Vatican there. And so we just have to keep up those kinds of efforts. It's not entirely the fault of the Catholic Church, but clearly the moral underpinning, I think we got to put that in quotations, for this comes from the papal bulls. There was an earlier one in the 1450s as well. But much more just needs to be, people need to understand that it is the basis of American Indian law. That the Indians magically lost the right to own their own land, and that somehow we parceled the title to their land into two distinct pieces, the smaller portion of which went to them. It's just absurd, because if you think about it, if somebody steals your car and you get your car back, it ought to be yours again. Their land was stolen, and so they bought it back. It ought to be all theirs again. But it's not, because of the doctrine of discovery. So we just have to keep talking about it. I know Professor Arnold wrote about it last year in some newsletter. There will be another article about it. We will talk about it more. I know Chief Warren Lyons honest, the other distinguished professor in the SUNY system that I know talks about it a great deal. And I feel a bit remiss that I'm just learning about it in the last year and a half. So if I'm just learning about it, I think that that's not a good sign, because I've had some really good teachers in the last 25 years. So we just have to keep working towards recognition that it is so fundamentally wrong, that it's embarrassing. And my experience is, and Oren says the same thing, that when he talks about the doctrine of discovery, people get it pretty quick. It's wrong. It's not justifiable. And so we have to spread that word. Every one of you talks to 10 people, please. That's how we build movements. We've stopped other wars. We can stop this one, and we can stop this if we work at it.